it's not just about the Hunter Biden laptop. Okay, it's about the constant suppression of information and not misinformation, suppression of information. Twitter, the Twitter files. Now, Dave was in yesterday, so we wanted to make sure that we did a deep dive and we were able to get all the information possible because there's a lot to kind of unpack and there will be more files coming out.
Right. And we thought some was going to come out last night, but it turns out it didn't. I don't know why it got pushed, but Elon said something about needing a little bit more time to get it all together. So,
why does he need more time?
I don't know. He does. I mean, he runs 5 companies and has 9 kids, so
that's true. Lives in a tiny house.
He's a busy fellow.
So Friday, of course, when he released the Twitter files, and the files were reported by an independent journalist, formerly of Rolling Stone, Matt Taibbi. There was a thread on his Twitter account. All the references are available at loudwithcrowder.com. So here are some of the highlights. But there are some other interesting facets here that I think some people have maybe missed, and I also think this has been really sort of valuable as a lightning rod to see who in the Republican Party should not be considered amongst our ranks.
Right, exactly.
So what do we have? We have the Biden team consistently asked Twitter to censor material. This may not be surprising, but the specificity with which it happened is very disconcerting. So by 2020, requests from connected actors to delete tweets were routine. One executive would write to another, more to review from the Biden team. The reply would come back, handled. Now, here's the thing. Some of these tweets in question were from some small accounts. You can bring this up here. Some of these accounts that were banned, you have relatively small accounts, and they included what they claimed were sensitive pictures of Hunter Biden. Here's something interesting. You see the big account, you see James Woods, you see these big names, right? But I said, well, hold on a second. What are these small accounts that no one is talking about?
Yeah.
2 of the accounts that were targeted, they just seem to be anti-Chinese propaganda accounts that were banned.
And that nobody would really even know.
Or suspended.
Because you'll look at the James Wood thing and go, oh, okay, I'm going to focus on that, but who's this other person?
It's always the in-betweens. It's the little stories sometimes that give you, and this is why I talk about when we do what we do, we're incredibly grateful that you have all joined and supported us with Mug Club. I don't know that it's possible for people coming up today with the way big tech censors people to create what we've created. I don't know if there's a way for them to draft in behind us. That's a big part of what we're working on in the new year, to try and create an ecosystem where little guys actually have an opportunity like we did have in 2009 and 2010, 2012, before the algorithms changed it. It's what you don't see. It's not the big celebrities. It's the people who don't have that kind of pull. How are they treated? And they were removed and stories were censored repeatedly. And that happens in the dead of night. And that is long term. So much more dangerous because you're just kind of trimming this and you're etching that out, and then you end up framing a narrative and no one knows. It's the you can't really prove or disprove a negative because you never knew that story existed, and there's no way to find that story. That's what's so dangerous with all of this that I think a lot of people have maybe missed with the Twitter files. Something else that we obviously know, they were suppressing the laptop story, of course, on the grounds of it being hacked material. Well, they knew it was bullcrap.
Yeah. I don't understand.
They knew it was bullcrap back then, to be clear.
Immediately they knew.
It wasn't a misunderstanding. It was a lie. It was a lie with which Twitter was complicit. They claimed they thought it was hacked. And I thought, well, did they not just watch our show where Giuliani brought the laptop on air? No, we know, according to, and I want to go to you in a second.
Yeah, go ahead.
Here's a quote. Former VP of Global Communications, Brandon Borman, wrote in an email, "Can we truthfully claim that this is part of the policy? As part of our approach to addressing potentially hacked material, we are limiting visibility of related stories on Twitter while our investigation is ongoing." Deputy General Counsel Jim Baker replied, "I support the conclusion that we need more facts to assess whether the materials were hacked," meaning the Hunter Biden laptop story. "At this stage, however, it is reasonable for us to assume that they may have been and that caution is maybe warranted. There are some facts that indicate that the materials may have been hacked, while there are others indicating that the computer was either abandoned and or the owner consented to allow the repair shop to access it for at least some purposes. We simply need more information." Here's the thing. They were saying maybe, maybe not. That information was available. When you look back through history, it's not did people do what they could do with the information that they had at that time. It's what other information was available at that time. And were there contrarians? Were there opposing viewpoints saying, hey, there is information available at this time which was discounted? For example, Anthony Fauci with AIDS saying that you could catch it because it was airborne, that a kid could catch it from his parents through a cereal box at their house. When other people were saying, no. It's primarily gay sex in the bathhouses that you attend. The same thing with COVID, right? This came from a wet market. people say, well, they did the best with the information they had at that time. No. Were there other people at that time saying, no, that doesn't seem to be the case? When they said, hey, 2 million people are going to die within the next 4 months, according to the Imperial College of London. This is all the information we had at this time. No. Were there other people at that time who were doctors, who were scientists saying, that is incorrect? At this point in time, they said, we simply need more information. They could have asked us. We had the laptop on this show. Hey, they could have asked Giuliani. They could have asked the FBI. Only the FBI raided Giuliani's apartment and took everything but the laptop. They deliberately avoided finding the relevant information because they knew that it wouldn't, of course, support their narrative, all the while censoring the story for the entire world. This happened on all major platforms.
Yeah.
We need more information. Why didn't they go get it? They could have made 2 phone calls. We did.
Yeah, well, and my problem is twofold with this, right? And so one of them, I'm going to ask the guys in Mission Control to pull up when they ran the New York Times story on Donald Trump's leaked tax returns, right? Mm-hmm. That fit right into this policy. Like you said, is the policy applied equally? Donald Trump had been famous for saying, I am never releasing my tax returns, so much so that he was sued over and over and over again to get them. And all of a sudden, the New York Times runs a piece. Here are Donald Trump's leaked, read that, hacked tax returns, right? And they ran it, nothing.
Now that's illegal.
That's illegal.
That's illegal. Hunter Biden was so high that he didn't pick up his computer from Geek Squad. And I know it was a computer repair shop. By the way, the guy who owned the computer repair shop said, I'm available for interview.
Anybody want?
I have the receipt. Anyone want to talk with me about it? I will declare this to be true under oath. No one from Twitter reached out?
Yeah. But here's the other part of that. When he just said in the quote there, he's like, is there a way for us to hide behind this policy so that we can do what we already want to do in the first place?
Right.
That's how he said it, not, is this something that fits in the policy? Let's look at it objectively and make sure that everything's okay. No. We want to ban this story. We want to get rid of this. Can we hide behind the language in this
there
policy?
was, and by the way, there was a Democrat representative who had a problem with this. So it was Ro Khanna, who was, by the way, connected to Ro Khanna obviously was connected with the Democrat Party and contacted Twitter's lawyer, one of their top lawyers, that Vijaya Gad. I'm pronouncing it incorrectly, but here's the thing. It doesn't matter because she no longer matters. Now,
thank God.
This is what this person said. Was concerned about the First Amendment, said, hope you are well, Vijaya. This throttling of the laptop story seems a violation of the First Amendment principles. If there is a hack of classified information or other information that could expose a serious war crime and the New York Times was to publish it, I think that the New York Times should have that right. And this is even assuming that it was hacked, which it wasn't.
Right.
So to restrict the distribution of that material, especially regarding a presidential candidate, seems not in keeping of the principles of New York Times versus Sullivan. I say this as a total Biden partisan and convinced he didn't do anything wrong. Now, this means that there are some people on the left who understood the gravity of this.
Yeah.
Here's something that really I would say is most disconcerting to me. There are Republicans out there. There are people who want to tear down the conservative movement, who are trying to say that if you're a conservative and you're being a drama queen about the First Amendment, you don't understand the First Amendment. This is a private company. They can do whatever they. How often have we heard that before?
All the time. Every single time something comes up from somebody on the right saying, we've been deplatformed, we have been shadow banned, we've been demonetized. It's like, well, sorry, you guys said free market, individual companies can do whatever they want, right? Right. We're like, guys, that's not what's going on.
So you've got Bill Kristol, you've got David French, you've got Jonah Goldberg, and Bill Kristol may be just the worst Republican ever.
He is absolutely the worst.
I mean, you might find someone who maybe
French
crapped his pants or something in the Senate a long time ago, but I don't think you're going to get much worse.
In the coat room and didn't tell anybody?
So David French said that what Twitter did had nothing to do with the First Amendment. And this is what you're hearing. And by the way, hit the like button because the algorithms tell you that we're dead on YouTube. And hit the like button if you strongly disagree with the idea that this is not a First Amendment issue. It directly affected the outcome of an election. Anyone who is telling you otherwise either is lying or hasn't done their research. We now know that back then Twitter was lying. They knew that it wasn't hacked. At best, they thought it was likely not hacked, but they decided not to do their due diligence. At worst, they knew beyond any shadow of a doubt that it wasn't hacked, and they decided to throttle it anyway. Yeah. So this is David French. This is just shamelessly wrong. A private political campaign is not the government, meaning that at the time, Joe Biden, because Joe Biden was reaching, his officials were reaching out, his team were reaching out to Twitter officials.
Donald Trump was in office.
Right. A political party is not the government. Hold on a second. The political party that controls the House chambers? Okay. A private company is not the government. It is if it's doing the government's bidding.
Right.
Then it says, this isn't a systematic violation of the First Amendment. The First Amendment isn't implicated at all. This was not in any way a private company making a decision on their own. This was a private company doing the bidding in by the way, flying in the face of all factual information that we had available to us in order to favor one political party who, by the way, controlled substantial portions of the government and were seeking to control all portions of the government. Every coup that has happened throughout history has often historically been militarily, right? Someone has some kind of a coup through guerrillas, right? Or they somehow maybe subvert the military, get them to turn on the current leaders. Right now, we're in an age of information guerrilla warfare. And so if the opposing party to Donald Trump, right, we're talking about, of course, Democrats, Pelosi was the speaker still at that time, if they can get Twitter, Facebook, Google, YouTube to do their bidding, that's the equivalent to a military coup. You want to talk about insurrection? That's insurrection using the most powerful entities that exist on planet Earth. Bill Kristol retweeted an article, and he argued that MAGA trolls were just mad they couldn't post Hunter Biden dick pics.
Jeez.
By the way, I was mad that we couldn't post Hunter Biden dick pics, but that's not what that's not what this is about. He wrote, while normal human beings who denied Republicans their red wave were enjoying an epic sports weekend. Yeah, sports. I'm sure you know a lot about that, Billy. MAGA activists were getting riled up about leaked emails revealing the troll accounts were not allowed to post ill-gotten photos on a company platform. Hey, hold on a second, Bill Kristol. You claim to be, this is like the Anna Navarro. I was a Republican. Okay, so we get it. You're not pro-life. Okay, so we understand it. You don't like Donald Trump. But if you say you were a Republican and you say the party left you, do you mean to say that you were never on board with at least the tenets of the Republican Party in theory that believed that government should be limited, that government should not infringe on personal liberties, right? That we believe at the very least, in other words, you were a Republican fiscally, so then you would still have to believe in as much decentralized power as possible. So how can you say, I was a Republican, but I'm really glad that the government, that the DNC coordinated with the world's biggest tech platforms to censor a story that would have changed the outcome of the election. And here's another guy, Jonah Goldberg, who may be a decent man. I've spent some time with him very, very briefly. Never been a fan of the way that he presents his points of view, namely because he thinks that he's funny. So according to him, the story, Hunter Biden, and this isn't just about Hunter Biden, by the way, it's about the implication and the corruption and the stranglehold that foreign entities could have on a potential future president who is now the former vice president. It wasn't just about Hunter smoking Parmesan cheese. That was the funny part. It was about the kickbacks to Joe Biden. It was about the liabilities that we would face as a country if someone is beholden to foreign entities, which we now somewhat see with Ukraine and amounts of cash pledged that seem to defy reason. So according to Jonah Goldberg, though, this story didn't matter at all because it wouldn't have changed anything, which is, of course, factually incorrect.
We talk about A to C. They now think that if only the media had told us about the laptop at the time, as the kid yesterday was suggesting, which I don't buy his theory, that Trump would have won. But for the censoring of the New York Post, Trump would have won. And I think it's a preposterous counterfactual, but it's also it's impossible for me to refute. In the same way, I cannot refute that this bottle is keeping all the polar bears
refute
away.
That your testosterone levels are 25% lower than your
polar bears.
No. He's the 40%. He's what skews it to 25.
And this is just it has now become.
Can we lock the doors just?
It has been wrapped into a much larger narrative and so when they hear disinformation, they say, oh, you mean like Hunter laptop, which actually turned out to be true.
Okay, a couple of things. First off, it's not just about the Hunter Biden laptop. Okay, it's about the constant suppression of information and not misinformation, suppression of information. For example, we had Kerry Lake on. Biggest election stream of all time, 2016. They decided we're not going to, 2016 and 2020. They said you're not going to be allowed to do midterms. So it ended up being the biggest election stream off of the platform that is YouTube. That's suppression of information because Kerry Lake had a problem with the voting methodology, specifically in a primary that she won. We were removed for that. It's suppressing people who say, you know what, I don't think that keeping children at home for years with COVID is beneficial. I think the net negatives outweigh the net positives. In other words, it's not just about the Hunter Biden laptop story. How would the election landscape have changed when you take into account what, at this moment in time, as the election was taking place, there was never going to be a vaccine, according to the DNC. Donald Trump didn't do anything for COVID. It came from a wet market. The CDC and the WHO were to be trusted, and the Republican Party was a party that was anti-science at this point in time. And, by the way, Joe Biden was, of course, beyond the scope of any type of corruption because no one even knew about Hunter Biden. It's all of it. Now, let's just narrow it down to the Hunter Biden laptop story. And this is the straw man that Jonah Goldberg and David French and these people use. They say, oh, it's a private company. It's not a private company if they're doing the government's bidding. Oh, I don't necessarily know that the Hunter Biden laptop story would have changed the election. It absolutely would have, but we're not just talking about Hunter Biden. That was just the most egregious example in which they were caught. But let's just narrow it down to that. Remember when I say don't trust the experts? Jonah Goldberg doesn't know his thumb, if you have children, I'm sorry, doesn't know his thumb from his dick. Because according to the polls, we've talked about this, you can reference all of these at louderwithcrowder.com, 17% of Biden voters themselves said they would have changed their vote or not voted if they had known about the laptop story and the contents therein. If you take that into account, this is just the Hunter Biden laptop issue, not the Fauci issue, not the vaccine issue, not the mask issue, not the homeschooling issue, not the Ukraine issue, not the Chinese issue, just the Hunter Biden laptop story. Taking that into account, that would have changed Arizona, that would have changed Georgia, Nevada, Michigan, New Hampshire, Pennsylvania, Wisconsin, Michigan. You just change a little more than half of those and the election changes. Here's another argument they make. Well, the Dems weren't in control at that time, the Democrats, so it doesn't really matter. They didn't have any power over Twitter. Again, the DNC is the official wing of the Democratic Party. Nancy Pelosi and Joe Biden, of course, are the de facto representative of the Democratic Party. Of course, it shouldn't only be people who are currently in government, though the DNC encapsulates that too, but people seeking the most powerful role of government, namely the President of the United States. According to Tybee, just to be clear on this, by the way, who's not a conservative, this system wasn't balanced. It was based on contacts because Twitter was and is overwhelmingly staffed by people of one political orientation. There were more channels, more ways to complain, open to the left, far more, meaning Democrats, than the right. This is something, and by the way, keep in mind too, with all this misinformation going out there, and conservatives being suppressed, we need to be able to fight back.
Of
right?
course.
So people say, well, why don't you just go create your own Twitter? Okay, well, then maybe they remove it from the App Store. Right? Or what happens is it's no longer searchable, whether it's Parler, whether it's Rumble, whether it's actually Twitter now. Go and create your own. Or you know what? Hey, at the very least, Kayleigh Mack, she was obviously press secretary.
Yeah.
She was removed just for mentioning the Hunter Biden story. So when you have Twitter, who is provided protections under Section 230 as a public utility, and they are removing the people in government who are tasked with ensuring that you receive accurate information, at what point do we say, okay, it's no longer a private entity? It used to be that the government was in a position of power and they would have strong men in industry, right, to enforce their unfair laws, legislation, right, to enforce what basically ended up benefiting those at the top. It's the exact opposite now. It's the elites in power who are worth far more than these individuals in government who now have the government enforcing their wishes. And it's a quid pro quo. And I ask you, do you feel free? And something else, it's really important to keep an eye, especially as we go into another election, conservatives who concede this territory. We're not looking to be removed from YouTube, but guess what? Mm-hmm. We're fine with it if it happens. Nothing would make me happier than all of you heading on over to Rumble right now. I cannot force you to. But when you have conservatives going out as apologists for Twitter, going out as apologists for Facebook, or demanding that other conservatives play ball with YouTube and that they make sure that they remain monetized, these things happen, right? And I'm not just talking about David French. We need to keep an eye on that because we need to expect better from people in our movement. We need to be... It's time to storm the castle, and we need to be a battering ram. We can't keep playing this, oh, well, is it a private company? No, it's not. We've proven beyond any shadow of a doubt that it's not. When Republicans have power, conservatives have any kind of power, they need some legislative accomplishments, or change them, boot them.
Watch Louder with Crowder live, Monday through Thursday, 10 a.m. Eastern.